Hi, everyone. My name is Suzi Grishpul. I'm the product manager for Action Builder. Welcome. So excited to have you today. Um, Today, we're doing our workshop on Action Builder events as our last workshop as part of Build Power. If this is your first workshop from this event, so glad to have you with us. If you came to our other workshops in our panel last week, welcome back. I'm very excited to talk about Action Builder events. And I'm going to go ahead and dive right in because we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Great. All right. This is an interactive presentation. I'm going to have some audience questions sprinkled throughout. So if you'd like to participate, we'd love to hear from you. You can do that either on your computer or on your phone. Just go to menti.com and use the code 64829779. And you can answer some fun questions that we have. Great. So just to kind of talk a little bit about why we're all here. This is a session on organizing events with Action Builder. This isn't a super technical workshop about all the bells and whistles of the events feature, but really we're just going to be talking about how Action Builder events can strengthen your turnout efforts, help you track accountability with your members, and identify emergent leaders and develop their leadership. I'm going to talk a little bit about some real examples of the Action Builder events feature in use in different organizing contexts. I will be doing some demos of how to actually set up and track your events in Action Builder, specifically tied to some of the organizing principles that I'll talk about in the beginning. And then we'll also have some time at the end for you to identify some ways that you might be able to apply these learnings to your own work. So to get things started, I would love to hear from you all. What kind of events are you currently using in your organizing work? This should show up as a little word cloud. So feel free to join at menti.com and enter this code at the top here. And let me know what kind of events. Marches, a lot of those going on right now. Rallies, yep, yep. What else? Organizing committees, yep, canvases. This is great. These are all examples I will be using later in my presentation, so thank you for setting me up. Meetings, 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 yep. Trainings. Cool. Trainings, very popular one. Planning meetings. Socials, also very important. Strengthening those bonds. Awesome. Feel free to keep adding your ideas here, but this is a beautiful example. Webinars, yes, exactly. I'm using that to organize all of you right now. And cool. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways people use events in organizing. All right, cool. So to just kind of give an overview of what we're all going to talk about today, I'm going to start with just kind of high level talking about why. Why do we use events? Why do we put all this time and effort and work and coordination into planning all these different type of events? What value do they bring to our organizing work? Then I will be sharing some use cases, like I said, of some different types of meetings and what you need to make those meetings successful. Then I will go into some actual highlights of the Action Builder feature and actually show you how it works in practice to support some of those needs identified in the use cases. And then I'm going to speak to the difference between Action Builder events and Action Network events. This is a question we get a lot. If you're using both tools, or if you're an Action Network user and curious about Action Builder, I'll kind of talk about the differences and similarities, and then also just talk a little bit about how you can use both together. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. Like Jeff said in the chat, you can add any questions that you have to the Q&A in Zoom, and our team will organize those and send them to me at the end. Cool. So starting with the value of events. How do events strengthen our campaigns? This is not an exhaustive list, but this is kind of like the 6 main things that I think of when I think of why events are really worth the effort. First, to mobilize and turn people out. Events are a really great way to move people from just passive interest in your work to actually showing up, taking an action, whether it's a meeting to plan actions you're taking together or actions themselves like rallies, canvases, like folks mentioned in the question earlier. It's really a way of people actually putting themselves out there for your organization. Another value that events bring is being able to build accountability. So it's not just about showing up one time and then never again. It's really about being able to track who is showing up consistently, how are they showing up, are people showing leadership, bringing other people in, showing interest in taking on more responsibility and more ownership of the work. Another value of events is that it helps us deepen relationships with each other. We need strong relationships in order to organize effectively against all the things we're organizing for and against. So events are great touch points for having those really important conversations and building connection between people. Events can help create campaign momentum. So whether it's, private events where you're really putting strategy together, or public events where it's really about showing your strength in numbers, events can help generate that energy and excitement across your base and your larger supporter network. Events help us build community and culture through having all these different shared experiences. It helps us reinforce solidarity and a sense of belonging, which I think is something that we all need now more than ever in these moments of great divisiveness in this world. And lastly, not just a benefit to planning, executing events, but really tracking events, is being able to use the data that you're collecting on event participation, what's working, what's not working, to think strategically about how you want to move your campaigns forward or plan your next events. Cool. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about a few use cases and kind of connect the dots between how these organizing values, what you need to actually do to make them a reality. So our first use case for Action Builder events is meetings. As folks were saying in the word cloud earlier, meetings are the backbone of all organizing. So this could be anything from general membership meetings, committee meetings, project planning meetings, onboarding for new members, trainings to help build people's skill sets out, a lot of different types of meetings in our world. So for this example, some of the things you might need to make a meeting successful include obviously inviting people to the meeting with enough notice that they can plan for it, but then also doing the confirmations and making sure that they're actually going to show up. You'll also want to be tracking participant needs, such as transportation to the event if it's an in-person event, accessibility needs that they might need for the space, childcare if you're offering that, language access, all of that kind of stuff. You're going to want to check people in at the meeting so you can keep track of who actually showed up, who wasn't able to make it, um, who didn't RSVP but showed up anyway, who brought friends, all of that kind of thing. At the meeting, you can use Action Builder to keep track of who participated and how, who led breakout groups, who made commitments that you want to follow up on, um, committees that were formed, all of that kind of stuff is really important to kind of keep the ball rolling in your work. This ties into other values because meetings aren't just about passive attendance. There are really opportunities for your members to get more involved with your work, as well as building trusting relationships with each other. Another use case for Action Builder events that we've seen, this was also mentioned in the word cloud, rallies. Rallies are a really important way of showing public strength to specifically to targets, as well as just getting general public support for your cause. So in the case of a union, some of the needs that you might have around organizing your meeting, or sorry, your rally, would be to divide up your list of membership and identify who's inviting whom. And again, make sure that they're coming. You might also want to track member needs, like I said before, about getting to the event, accessibility needs, etc. You might have specific roles associated with the event or commitments, such as who's bringing materials, if you're doing shifts throughout the day, who's going to show up for what shifts, who your shift leads are, things like that. You'll also want to be tracking attendance of who actually showed up and who wasn't able to make it. And also tracking all of these things over time, over the course of many events, helps you measure the strength of your organizing by seeing how that participation is growing over time or how it might be falling off and you might need to like change your outreach strategy or things like that. Um, Again, rallies are not just a show of strength, but can also be a leadership test if you're tracking who is actually being able to like deliver on their turnout, and who you can identify as leaders, as candidates for further development. And as a last use case, Canvas, also mentioned in the word cloud. So in this example, canvassing for a ballot initiative, elections are coming up. A lot of people are starting to work on those already. So this is a very relevant and timely example. So for example, you're coordinating a canvas with dozens of shifts in lots of locations across the city. It's a lot of coordination, a lot of people in the mix. Having a unified system where you can see all of that in one place and see how your efforts are working with both the turnout and the actual results of the canvas is really crucial. So some of the needs that you might have in this use case might be reaching out to volunteers to fill those shifts. Again, tracking what needs they might have around transportation or their preference of what location they want to, or area they want to take on for their canvas, accessibility needs, issues that they want to focus on in their work that day, etc. You're going to want to check in your volunteers, again, keeping track of who's showing up, see some patterns here. You'll also want to track emergent leaders, like people who are really showing the numbers and having really successful conversations and showing that like organic leadership potential. And also identifying potential volunteers to recruit that you might just meet that day. or that people might bring friends that you want to bring into your organization and capture them in Action Builder day of. And then, of course, you can use your Canvas data in the long run to kind of gauge public interest on the initiatives that you're working on and inform your future campaign strategies. So the value here is, like I said, tracking your campaign efforts, organizing and coordinating big teams of volunteers across a variety of locations and shift times, reining in that chaos. All right, time for another question. What do you currently use to organize and track outreach and attendance for your events? Once again, if you joined late, you can participate in this audience question by going to menti.com, as you can see on the top of the screen. Use that code. All right, someone's using Action Builder. Love to see it. And Action Network, of course. Yes, something else. Another vote for Action Network. This is a judgment-free zone. If you use tools that are not ours, it's safe to say so, and it's anonymous, so it's okay. Google Forms, yep. Been there, done that. Cool. Thank you all for casting your votes on this one. Okay. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things. So far, something else is our winning category. So if you want to tell me in the Q&A what other tools you're using, I'm curious to hear about that. But there's dozens of event management tools out there. Eventbrite, I didn't list that, all kinds of different things. What's that one? Partyful that I keep getting texts from people about. Lots of different tools you can use. But as I've been talking about, Action Builder is really just built around tying events in with your larger organizing strategy and not just planning one-off events, which I think is a core difference with some of the other event management tools out there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Great. Okay, so next I'm going to go into the demo part of this workshop, actually kind of talking about some of the key pieces of functionality in the Action Builder events feature and how they tie in to the things that we've been talking about today. Cool. So first thing I want to talk about, as I said over and over again in my use cases, there's a lot, tied to events of different pieces of information that are really crucial to track about your attendees. So before an event, you might want to track what people's transportation needs are, accessibility needs are, dietary needs if you're providing food and snacks, childcare needs, translation or ASL or any kinds of language access needs that people have. The list goes on and on, but those are all obviously things that you need to know ahead of your events to inform how to set the event up for success and enable as many people to participate as possible. At an event, you might want to track information like assignments, so committees people have joined, roles or tasks that people have taken on, projects people have signed up for, things like that. You might want to track people's participation or particular subject matter topics that people are showing expertise in that might be helpful to your work. There might be questions or conversations that came up with members at your events that you want to make sure you capture to follow up with them on after the fact. And you might also want to track things like if they decided to bring 3 friends along to your event, how many people they brought, as just an indication of, mapping out people's social networks and their leadership potential. So for this, I'm going to give a little demo. So when you are logged into Action Builder, and this is the view for if you are an admin user. So if you are a lead, organizer, or activist user, this is something you will need to ask your admin user for your account to set up for you. But event info fields work very similarly to the info fields we already have on entities and on connections. So all of the different field types are available to you. So here I have some examples of some of these info fields that I've been talking about. So for event planning, you can set up a field for access needs. I've set this up as a note field so that, if you have like additional notes that you want to add on to that selection, maybe, you want to indicate that they need childcare and you want to indicate the ages of the kids that someone needs childcare for, or you want to add more information about the language access needs that someone has, things like that. You can add those there, things like dietary preferences, if you're serving food at your events, or if people have allergies that you want to make sure that you're not having any cross-contamination with, or things like that. Meeting participation, excuse me, these are some of the examples I was just sharing. So questions, conversations you want to follow up on, roles, regular recurring roles at events that people agree to take on, like maybe they want to be a greeter at the front desk of your meeting, or a note taker or a runner to kind of take care of whatever logistical things might be coming up, or keeping time for minutes or things like that. And also kind of keeping track of number of additional guests people bring. Kind of, again, feel out that organizing strength that people are bringing to your work. Rally planning. It's always really helpful when you're planning events with a lot of materials to kind of get a sense of what kind of materials people need. So if you're printing things out, you know how much to print, if you're making stickers, signs, etc. So people can request these materials ahead of time so you can have them ready for them. We do have a field in Action Builder that is a shift field. So you can create different kinds of shifts and ask people which shifts they might be available for. And then when you do your confirmation calls with them, confirm that they're still available for those and, make sure that they're actually committing to showing up. And so those are just some examples of some of the types of info that you might want to be tracking on folks. And I'll share in just a little bit on how that actually works in practice. Cool. So after you kind of think through what info fields you want to set up and collect as part of your event turnout recruitment process, then it comes time to actually do the work of deciding who you're going to invite, splitting up the work of inviting them, and track those initial RSVPs, confirmations, and Action Builder actually has the option for even a second confirmation in case you extra want to be sure that they're actually showing up to your events. The events feature is very closely tied in with our tasks feature if you're using that in Action Builder. And the tasks feature is sort of what enables the project management flows through Action Builder. So, if you have 500 members that you want to invite out to this rally, one person sitting there calling all of them up, probably not super realistic, but dividing that work up into turfs using the task feature will allow you to split up that work and still make those invitations personal, as opposed to Action Network, where it's more of like a broad reach of invitations. With Action Builder, it's really about that personal connection and that personal accountability of getting people to actually show up for your events. Getting those initial RSVPs is also helpful to just generally gauge interest in your events, get a sense of what types of events people are more interested in or less interested in, and kind of learning more about why. And like I said previously, getting the information that you need at different points in the event planning and execution process to prepare the space and the materials that you need for a successful event. So for this one, I'm going to actually start diving into the events feature itself. So if you have the events feature enabled for your campaign, you will go to the events tab at the top here and say we're going to look at our October membership meeting. You create your event, you define the time, the location, or it can also be a virtual meeting, so you can specify the link to the Zoom or Google Meet or wherever the virtual meeting is going to, or virtual event's going to be. You can also add a description for the event. So Action Builder events are all behind the login, just like everything else in Action Builder. So this is really just information for your organizers in case they need, the agenda for the meeting quickly at hand or any other details that might be useful for them when they're doing their outreach and coordination. So once you've planned your meeting, your first step in Action Builder is to hit the turnout button, and this will jump you over to tasks and create your turnout task. So your turnout task is your first task in the series of tasks associated with Action Builder events. Everything about this is just like any other normal task, except for now you have a to-do here that is specifically for your event. Then you can define the universe. If you want to invite all your members or only a certain subset of people based on any query, of course you can do that. And then you create your turfs and divide these up and assign them so that you can delegate who's going to invite whom to this event. Go ahead and assign that first turf to myself. So for this event, I currently in this campaign, rather, I have these event fields turned on. So you can see I don't have all of my event fields turned on right now. I just have these kind of general ones and then also these specific ones for meetings. So when I go to the task as someone who has been assigned a turf in this task, I will click on that and I will start going down my list, inviting people to this event. And let's say I call up Keith. I tell him about this event, why it's important to us that he show up for it. And then I get his response on that. So let's say Keith says he's able to make it. Then it shows me all of these questions. So I can ask him further, like, does he have any needs around getting a ride, etc. And then anything else that might be relevant at this point. So if he wants to sign up to be a note taker, and these questions you can always come back to further along in the process. So none of this needs to be decided right now unless it's things that are tied to a certain time frame or deadline. Another nice thing in Action Builder is that we also show upcoming events. So as part of this invitation conversation, you can also say, hey, we also have this rally coming up in November. We also have another membership meeting coming up. Can we count on you to be there for the next 3 months? Just to kind of keep that ball rolling and keep them engaged in your work. And then I will just continue down this list. Let's say Harry is a maybe. So I have Minnie Mouse in this campaign. Minnie Mouse can't make it. Carolyn is a yes. And Felicia is a maybe. Great. Okay, and I've completed everyone in my turf. So now when I go back to the event and I go back to this meeting, this is going to show the compiled numbers of everyone who's working through their lists, and you'll be able to see at a glance how many RSVPs you have at this point, how many tentatives, and any of these links jump you over to the wall chart to see those lists of who your RSVPs are and who your tentatives are. Also, if you need to pull this list into your ticketing software, if it's a ticketing event or anything else, we also have an export for event data here. So like I said, you have the option to create confirmation and double confirmation tasks. These are optional, but when you create the event, it gives you the option, and you can also create them manually whenever in your process you're ready for it, or you can create them on a schedule. So this one, since the event is on the 24th, creates a confirmation task and on the 19th, and then a double confirm on the 22nd. And each of those, the universe will be defined by who your RSVPs and tentatives were from the previous step. So it's smart about that. So things are going along great. You've got people showing up or RSVPing for your event. You've confirmed with them. You have your numbers. You know what people's needs are. It's looking good. And then the event itself happens and other needs come up as part of tracking the event itself. So you obviously want to track attendance. You can track attendance either at the event itself in real time. You can also track attendance on a piece of paper and then enter it later. You can go through and mark who didn't show up. So you can also keep track of who your no-shows are and things like that. You can use Action Builder to sign people into your event, like I said, at the door. You can also take notes on participation and engagements and keep track of any follow-up tasks or conversations for after the event passes. So for this one, yes. So for this one, this is an event that happened in the past, yesterday, our September meeting. So as you can see, none of the other tasks are available for that one now, and we'll just be tracking attendance. So now we've created the attendance task, assuming people had actually already been invited and already RSVP'd for this. Just put everyone in the turf. Great. All right. So now I go in, and like I said, this could either be at the event itself. You go through and mark people as either attended or after the fact, you can mark whoever no-showed. We actually have a feature coming up probably in the next 6 months that's going to make this a lot more streamlined, so you don't have to click through to mark people as signed in, but you'll actually be able to sign them in from this list very quickly. You can also add people who just showed up at your event but weren't already in Action Builder. So that's very quick and easy to do. And you can also track some of those other info points that I mentioned, like what were some questions or conversations that you wanted to follow up on. Maybe someone had some feedback on logistics for your event, or there was a incident with someone that needs some follow-up, things like that. And so all these different data points are really helpful for your organizational, institutional memory around your different events and how people are participating in them. And lastly, reporting, reflecting, and resourcing future efforts. So all of this different events data is available both in the wall chart query builder and in individuals' entity profiles. So this can help you kind of learn from event trends, helps you answer questions like who is consistently showing up? Who are members who showed up for the last 3 membership meetings that maybe we want to tap to lead something at the next one or take on some extra responsibilities? What kinds of events are most popular or effective at engaging your members? Who are your members who maybe keep RSVPing and then aren't able to make it? And are there barriers that you can address and follow up with them about that would enable them to show up? Or are there other lower bar ways to engage them in your work that maybe aren't around events? And as in addition to seeing those kinds of things on the wall chart, you're also able to track an individual's event history to have that better context on how they're engaging with your work. So to show you what that looks like, when you were looking at the wall charts, under your filters here on the right side, we now have all these different event filter options. So you can pull a list based on particular meetings. So like I said, who are my people who showed up for these last 3 events? You can filter the list by specific statuses. So if you're looking for, specifically everyone who attended or everyone who hasn't attended, things like that. You can also search and include or exclude on those info fields that I've been talking about. So this is really helpful for like even leading up to the meeting. If you want to know, okay, who's everyone? Actually, I don't think I had a response for that. Show me everyone who had transportation needs so that I can cut that list and follow up with those people or assign that out to someone to follow up on. So in this case, we had 1 person. Or, show me everyone who didn't have one of these fields. Mind blanking on coming up with an example of that. And of course, all of these fields are also available in complex filters, and there's a lot of different ways you can use them in conjunction with other regular fields on entities and things like that. And then on someone's individual entity profile, of course, you have all their profile information. In the activity stream, you can see events activities here as well. And then events now also has its own tab, so you can track which events they have come to, which events they're RSVP'd for, and also see all of this information at a glance as well. And you can also add someone's RSVP. So you don't just have to do that through a task. You can do that directly from their profile. So let's say you're having a conversation with Keith and you want to invite him to the next event, you can do that right from here. Or if you want to go back and backlog someone's attendance at an event, you can do that from their profile as well. So as you can see, a lot of different moving parts to the Action Builder events feature that support all these best practices in events organizing to streamline that process and make it a lot easier for you. But now I'm curious to hear again from you all. What is your biggest challenge with organizing and tracking events right now? Feel free to respond. And this one is a little different than some of our other ones. It's like an open-ended field. So I give you all a minute to think. See some of our responses. Right. All right, they're coming in. Thanks, everybody. Good answers. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, we got a few more people coming in. Awesome. All right. So let's see. Clutter when there are lots of events on our page. All right. Keeping your data standardized. Yep, this definitely helps with that. Uploading different forms and data from different chapters. Yeah, that's interesting. So if you're all in one instance in Action Builder, you can standardize those sorts of things across all of your different campaigns. Tracking attendance, inviting new people, recurring events. Oh, that's something we also can do with Action Builder events. I didn't talk about that piece of it specifically. Um, Also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but we will drop links to our trainings and our help documentation at the end of this presentation. They'll also be linked to in the recording, so that if you want to know more about the technical ins and outs of events, we got you. Syncing between Action Builder and Action Network. Yes, I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. Making sure tasks get done ahead of the event. Figure out what to do with the info. Yep. Keep it in a system. Who actually attends. These are great. They're great. Organizing software to track events, delegating to volunteers. Yeah, and so the tasks feature, if you aren't familiar with it, you can add Action Builder users as activists, which is the most restricted level, which people often use for volunteers. You can give them only access to people that are within their list, so that it's more restricted, and therefore you can trust that people won't mess with your whole system, but can just do their work of outreach to their people. Using Action Network to get the word out about events, but translating that information to Action Builder where we want to mobilize folks, 100%. Knowing who the guests are. Yeah, so you could use a note field under guests, maybe to like capture the names of their guests or just add them like I was showing on the task page. So great. Thank you all so much. All right, drum roll, please. Next, I'm going to talk about Action Builder events versus Action Network events. Like I said earlier, it's a question we get all the time. Maybe it's a little bit more clear after seeing this presentation, but I have a handy table for you. Talk more about the differences and some of the similarities between them. So Action Network events, your Action Network pages are all publicly facing. So those are really for promoting your events widely. and publicly, and gathering as many RSVPs and gauging interest as possible. So, like things people have been talking about, big public rallies, big marches where you want people sharing those links around to the forums, getting as many people to sign up as possible. The Action Builder events can also still be about scale, but it's more about managing the full life cycle of event turnout. So that initial recruitment, confirmation, all the way through tracking who actually showed up. When it comes to event creation, in Action Network, you can create and host events in a group. In Action Builder, events are created per campaign. So depending on how you slice things out in your Action Builder instance, they're per campaign. When it comes to RSVPs and attendance, currently in Action Network, you can only track RSVPs. On the roadmap is actually the capability of tracking attendance, but no timelines for that yet. It is just something that's coming. But in Action Builder, like we've been talking about, you track RSVPs all the way through who actually showed up. And that's tracked by an organizer or a volunteer that is actually doing that, like confirmation that they were there. When it comes to the workflow of both of these tools, because Action Network events are just RSVPs, you can send out email reminders, but it's still more of that blast email as opposed to Action Builder events where you're creating these tasks for the workflow for organizers to actually be doing that personal outreach and recording the responses that they're getting from people. Both tools allow you to create custom fields when you're doing that RSVP. So on Action Network, you can ask all kinds of different types of custom questions related to your event, same as we've been talking about in Action Builder. Visibility, Action Network is public. For event campaigns, you can create a public map and search. So it's really about that public visibility. Action Builder is behind a login and it's more for internal tracking. And Action Network currently supports both bulk import and export. Action Builder, you can export events and event RSVPs. We do not have import for Action Builder events yet, but that will be coming. It is on our roadmap. And the moment you've all been waiting for, what about syncing events between Action Network and Action Builder? $1 million question. So I'm excited to share that we have started working on this finally. The first priority that we have in developing a sync between, or building on the sync, sorry, that we have between these two tools already, but specifically for events data, is to sync RSVPs from Action Network to Action Builder. So imagine someone signs up on the events page on your Action Network site, that RSVP syncs over and that person's record in Action Builder gets updated with their RSVP status. Then it goes into the workflow for organizers to then do that continued follow-up with them. So person RSVPs themselves and then organizers take it from there. Very excited about that. And then other parts of the sync that are on the horizon, but no dates planned for them yet. For this first step, it's just going to be syncing the RSVP status. So we won't yet be able to sync the actual custom fields from Action Network to Action Builder. And some other features that don't exist in Action Network yet are preventing some of these other developments. So Action Network also has on their roadmap to develop shift-based events. So once that exists, you'll be able to match shifts up between the two tools. And like I said, tracking event attendance will be able to go both ways. So if someone gets marked as attended in Action Network, it can update in Action Builder and vice versa. So a lot of exciting things coming to the sync to make these two tools work better together. All right. So now I want to open things up to a little Q&A. I know I threw a lot of information at you. Thank you so much for sitting through this workshop. Um, Jeff, tell me what burning questions people have for me. Oh, do I open the Q&A tab? Is that how this works? Amazing. Oh, thank you so much to Jeff and Shelly and Jen for answering Q&A questions while I was doing my thing. Okay, we've got a question from Shauna. So if we're using Action Builder events this fall, we'd want to create two separate events, one for AB, task tracking, volunteer management, etc., and one in Action Network to collect public-facing RSVPs. Yes, fantastic question, Shauna, and thank you so much. Oh, did that share it? Okay, great. For asking a question about something I am remiss to not mention. So we currently do have a workaround for syncing between RSVPs between Action Builder and Action Network. I believe Jeff is going to, yes, it's in the chat under workaround for sync. It's a Zoom clip, just drops that in. So it's a little bit of a hack, takes a little finagling with setting up your magic tags in the right way. But that is our current offer for workarounds, so that you don't have to do what your question was asking about doing duplicate work in both systems. But yes, but once the sync for events is live, those things will flow between the two tools a lot easier. All right, any other questions? All right. With all these new features coming 2026, it seems that Action Network and Action Builder are starting to merge with each other. Would it make sense in the future to have one tool to rule them all? Well, yes and no. I mean, we are all one company, and so we are constantly trying to find ways to make these tools work in harmony with each other. But at the end of the day, both of these tools have very different purposes, and I won't get into the nerdy details of it, but the technical infrastructure behind both tools is very different. So they will not, to the best of my knowledge, be merged into one tool to rule them all. But if you have suggestions for ways to make them work in harmony better, we are all ears. Love to hear it. Can either tool handle event attendees for whom we do not have email addresses? Love this question. Thank you, Tara, or Tara. Hope I pronounced your name right. Yes, so one core difference between Action Network and Action Builder is that in Action Network, every person needs to have an email address. That's what we key their record off of. In Action Builder, every person has a unique ID, and any of the contact information associated with that person is optional. So you could have 3 email addresses for a person, you could have 0 email addresses for a person. It is not a requirement. All you need, I believe, is a first name. I think that is the only required field for new entities. So yes, you can definitely do that in Action Builder. Great question. All right. Any other questions? Yes, and like Jeff said in the chat, all of the resources listed in the chat will be shared in the description of the recording. So if you are RSVP'd for this event through Action Network, you will be getting an email with a link to all the recordings, and you'll be able to find all of these resources there. All right, great. last call. Any more questions? All right. I just have one more question for you all. Would love to know, what is one thing that we covered today that you are excited to try next time you organize an event, with or without Action Builder? Obviously, I prefer that you organize your events with Action Builder, but just events in general. I want to hear it. Great, got some responses coming in. Don't be shy. I know it's the end of the day, especially for you East Coasters. All right, got some flattery. Thank you, thank you. All right, I'll open this up. So we've got some folks that are excited to use Action Builder to create and track events. Great. Playing around with tasks, yes. Also the training that Jeff dropped a link to, once we rolled out the events feature, we actually combined the training for that with the tasks training that we already had. So if you come to the 102 training that we have monthly, you get to learn about tasks and events, since they're clearly very coupled features. So tracking attendance directly in Action Builder. Yes, Menti is cool. It's true. This is actually my first time using it as a facilitator, and I agree with that statement. Being able to assign events and allowing volunteers to enter their activity into the system without giving them access to the whole system. Absolutely. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, person who added that. All right. Any other last thoughts? Great. Well, on that note, thank you all so much for joining. Great to have you. Excellent questions. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with our fun little tool. And thank you again so much to my Build Power co-conspirators, Jeff and Jen, my colleagues here at Action Network, Shelley Wen at AFL-CIO. Yeah, we really hope you have enjoyed these sessions. We will be sending out a survey to get some feedback from you probably in the next couple weeks. So please let us know what you thought of all of this, what topics you might be interested in hearing more about in the future, and stay tuned for more great Build Power events coming up next year. Take care, everybody.